Welcome to Watch, Review, Repeat. This is the podcast where two best friends discuss the latest in film and television and then do it all over again the following week. My name is Colton Brown, and joining me is Andrew Meadows.
Hey, what's going on, man?
Not much. We've got a guest with us, don't we?
Do we?
Well, I think we do. I believe we have Jordan Brown joining us again on the podcast.
Hello, gentlemen. How are you this evening?
I'm doing well.
Yeah, I think we're all doing pretty well. How about yourself, sir? How are you doing?
Well, you've already spoken for me, so I don't want to disagree.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair.
I'm doing well. Thank you.
Good. Welcome back. It's been a while since we had you on. I guess Blade Runner 2049 would have been the last appearance for you, right?
Yes, sir. That's correct. It was a good one. It was a gooder one.
Yeah. I would say that's a fair statement. So this is episode 34. So what do we have in store? No one likes my rhymes.
No.
You sons of bitches. Well, we're doing Pacific Rim Uprising this week. All right. Jeez, let me just answer my own question. All right.
I've got a fun fact about the Pacific Rims.
Okay. All right. It's very relevant again this week. I like what you're doing. What's your fun fact?
I do want to say I enjoyed the fun fact segment. Sorry to interject. I just wanted to say you guys should keep this going because Gherkins really has changed my life, and I'm hoping that my life can continue to be changed by revelations that you guys have.
Have you ordered anything? Hold the gherkins or extra gherkins?
No, I don't want to confuse people.
No, okay.
They're not enlightened like us.
Right? You're a man of the world. You have to order with gherkins now. But I couldn't find any fun facts for the second Pacific Rim. The fact pool was very limited, like the depth of the movie. But I did find a cool fact for the first one. Del Toro actually constructed a 4-story tall, 20-ton Jaeger head for the actors to act in while they were piloting the Jaegers. And they had to put their armor that they wear inside the Jaeger weighed 40 pounds, and they locked their feet into this weighted, super resistant, like elliptical machine kind of deal for how they would operate the mech's legs. And it was an incredibly brutal machine, which is pretty ridiculous. I think that's I would have an incredible time recording strapped into a freaking Jaeger 4-story tall Jaeger head. I think that's crazy.
I kind of feel like that would help, get you into character in some ways.
One hell of a practical
right, exactly.
prop.
Like you're getting ragdolled all over the place. Like it's going to feel like you're like I would feel like, fuck yeah, I'm legitimately a Jaeger pilot right now. I feel like that's a good way to do it. It's very method, I guess.
Yeah, it's definitely freaking cool.
Yeah, there's a ton of featurettes on the Blu-ray as well. I think that there's at least a handful of those that kind of explore exactly that, so you can kind of see what it looks like, pre-visual effects, to kind of see how it looks, that whole contraption you're describing. So worth a look if that catches your interest.
Yeah. So there you go. There's my fun fact for the week, man. Not a gherkin, but there is a huge ass Jaeger head out there you can hop in.
Oh, it's probably not there anymore. They usually tear those things down when they're done filming.
That's true.
I feel like you could ship that to China as like a tourist attraction.
Fuck yeah, dude.
The Gundam over in Japan. This sounds very unpleasant, but gives it that weight. To translate to the movements. I can kind of see it being effective as a tool, but it does sound very unpleasant.
It's cool.
It is cool. All right. Well, let's talk some news for this past week. We're going to start with a couple trailers. First of which is something that I wanted to talk about last episode, but I forgot to put it on the episode script, so Andrew had unfortunately not seen it at the time of recording. But we have corrected that error, and all of us present have now seen the trailer for Under the Silver Lake. So this is the follow-up to It Follows. The director of that, David Robert Mitchell, it's his next project. It stars Andrew Garfield, Riley Keough, and Topher Grace. What'd you guys think about this trailer here?
Looks like aces, man. Looks awesome. I'm excited about it.
I'm not sure. I liked it. Kind of had a weird offbeat kind of feel to it. As far as the movie, I'm definitely in for the movie. Based on the trailer and just based on the production company, pretty much everything they make is
A24.
worth watching.
Yeah, man, A24 is awesome.
Everything I've been able to see locally, I have, and I know there's a few that are out on Blu-ray and I'm sure streaming that I haven't caught yet, but I'll probably try to do that at some other point. But looks interesting for sure.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think it looks really good. Someone on the YouTube comment section, which I made the unfortunate mistake of scrolling down. I know that's something that you probably shouldn't do, but sometimes you just can't help yourselves. Like you just want to know. Like it's like watching the car crash. You kind of have to see it. Someone was like, it's Paper Towns, but good. And I was like, that seems like a pretty good comparison, at least in terms of the plot. I don't know if you guys saw that.
I did not see Paper Towns.
The YouTube comment you saw? No, I didn't see the same YouTube comment.
Either the YouTube comment or the movie Paper Towns, whichever one.
I think I saw part of it at one point when I had HBO, like a few minutes of it, not the whole thing. It was fine. It was fine.
Yeah, I agree. It was fine, but this looks like it's a similar kind of plot, at least overall construction of it, and it feels like it's more my speed though. So I'm excited about this one. I think it looks good. It's coming out June 22nd of 2018, so it's a few months away, I guess. Our next trailer that we got this past week is a full-length trailer for a movie called Deadpool 2. Which, of course, is a sequel to a movie called Deadpool, in case you guys weren't aware. What'd you think about this one?
I thought it was okay. I was assuming this is the story trailer, but there wasn't a whole lot of story to it. There wasn't a whole lot of cable to it. There were some quick cuts and some zany liners, and I thought it was okay. Deadpool, I'm interested to see. I'm intrigued by the very different reports of it being terrible or at least disappointing, and then the follow-up that it's amazing. It's got a 98 out of 100, so I'm just gonna show up and enjoy it if I can, but definitely I'll be there to watch it. But the trailer didn't do a whole lot for me personally, but I'm there for the movie anyways.
I thought it looked pretty cool, man. I'm pretty excited. I think it's gonna be I don't know. I think it's going to be another Deadpool movie. And I was blown away by the first Deadpool movie. You say wow as in like...
Well, you said it's going to be another Deadpool movie, and I was just like, okay, well, that's... I mean, you're going out on a limb there, aren't you?
Well, I mean, there's movies that are sequels to other movies, and they're definitely not
as good, or they feel like they might be a different kind of movie, like almost a different genre.
Yeah,
like,
they just feel completely different.
You wait 5 years and you replace some of the main cast and you anime up things and you just change certain elements of it that are probably for the worse, but not a complete waste.
Right.
I'm not sure what you're talking about. I don't know that I've ever experienced that sensation in a movie.
Yeah, I don't know. That's ringing bells for me, but I can't quite place exactly what you're speaking about. Maybe we'll have to figure it out later. I don't know.
Yeah, we might get into it a bit.
Well, I mean, it's definitely a Deadpool movie. I mean, that's definitely the vibe I got from that. I guess I see what you guys are saying in the sense that, yeah, obviously sequels can be changed to be different, to be worse, whatever the case may be. This one definitely feels very tonally in the vein of the first one. Seems like it's, I think they probably got a little bit more money to play with this time around because it seems like it's not constrained to one big set piece on a highway, which I think is good. And the humor I think is consistent with what we got before, so it either will probably work for you or it won't. I think that just kind of depends on how you felt about the first one. I don't see this one winning anyone over that didn't like the first one. Would be my kind of impression of it. Jordan, you mentioned the test screenings. I was actually going to bring that up because I was kind of like, okay, that first report came out about, okay, people are like, this is crap, it sucks, and then the next one was like, it's the best thing in the world, and I'm like, wasn't there like a bunch of Twitter reactions that came out after one of the Suicide Squad test screenings saying it's one of the best comic book movies ever made and easily the best thing DC's ever made, which to be fair, I mean, it wasn't probably too far off that mark, but
I think every DC movie with the exception of Justice League had very positive early buzz, but I think it's probably a selection bias type thing. You corral your nerds into one big room and show it to them, and they're hyped up and they get to see it early, and so they're excited for a variety of reasons. I think that's more I'm not sure, but I think this is more like a different measuring system. That's like, you can't post spoilers, you can't post reviews. We just want you to post impressions, and we suggest you post positive impressions on Twitter. And this is more like a what do you call that? Like a group, like a focus group. It's more of like a focus group type thing.
All right.
That's the impression I got, but I could totally be off base on that. I just basically get the first few sentences of the article and move on. So I'm not somebody who's delved deeply into that particular area.
Yeah, I mean, that's fair. I just kind of feel like, based on previous responses from test screenings, it seems like the test screening groups usually get things wrong. I know most studios do use them to kind of shape the movie kind of throughout the production process, but I kind of feel like anytime we hear a report like this, it usually doesn't seem to align with kind of what things turn out to be. This movie could very well be amazing, or it could be complete garbage, or it could be somewhere in the middle. I feel like, I don't know. I mean, I liked this trailer. I thought this looks good, but I think it's still something that it looks very similar to the first one. So again, if that didn't do anything for you, I don't really see this changing your mind. So I don't know. We'll see how it shapes up. May 18th when it comes out in theaters. Sticking with some superhero news. Actually, the rest of the movie news is all superhero related, isn't it? Just realized that. I mean, we're not actually technically a superhero film podcast, but we ought to be at this point, I feel. Black Panther has become the highest grossing comic book movie of all time domestically. So it has officially crossed $630 million in the United States and Canada. And that places it over the likes of the Avengers, which had $623 million in its entire domestic run. It's also passed Star Wars: Last Jedi, which is not a comic book movie, but it did $619 million. So that's a pretty crazy benchmark to kind of pass over. So right now it's sitting at number 5 overall of all time in domestic box office, currently trailing Jurassic World at $652 million, Titanic at $659 million, and Avatar and The Force Awakens. So Jurassic World and Titanic, I would say, are within reach. It's still got, I think, plenty of legs to carry it through, probably at least until Avengers comes out in basically a month.
If it's still in theaters, I'll go see it again.
Making history, man. It's making history. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, I might have to throw one more in myself. I would really like it to pass Jurassic World, because I've kind of got a hate boner for that particular movie. But I mean, if it doesn't, it's still an amazing thing. I don't really get into box office predictions, but I think sub 100 million was like on most people's mouths, in the early running at least, before what was in development. And obviously Tracking came out and kind of the cultural sensation. People were like, wow, this might do some business. But it's still, even in hindsight, I can't say that I ever would have predicted anything like this, but it's very impressive.
No, I feel like that's kind of the MO with a lot of these box office juggernauts, is that you really don't see them coming. I mean, I didn't see Jurassic World, breaking Avengers opening weekend record and, legging its way to $650 million. I also agree that it probably doesn't deserve that much money, but nonetheless, it's impressive to kind of see that happen. Titanic back in the day, I mean, you could look at the way that movie played. It's absolutely insane. Avatar, same way, just James Cameron's got legs of fucking steel or something. I don't know what the hell's going on there. And of course, Star Wars. I mean, we all expected Star Wars to be big, don't get me wrong, but the way that it absolutely smashed all the records and made almost $1 billion in America, I have a hard time seeing any movie coming close to that in the foreseeable future. I'm sure something will break it eventually, but I think it's going to be something that we're not going to see coming, and I think that's kind of the joy of seeing stuff like this. That's the joy of seeing Black Panther, of all things, really just kind of doing crazy amounts of money. I think it's awesome. I'm really happy about it. It is worth noting that Black Panther's 5-week run atop the weekend box office charts has officially ended at the hands of Pacific Rim Uprising.
Oh, they stopped the apocalypse.
Canceled. Yeah. I mean,
canceled. Yeah. Oops.
I mean, if you're calling Black Panther an apocalypse, then I guess that might be technically accurate. I wouldn't agree with that assessment personally.
It's apocalypse at the box office.
It's probably racist.
Look, all right. Well, I wasn't going to go that far, but there was some implications there. But yes, it did. It did break the Black Panther's incredible run. It didn't do exactly all that great. I think it made $27 million opening weekend, which for a movie that certainly cost a decent amount of money isn't exactly anything to write home about. But
it's about that China money, son.
Yeah, I mean it is, and it did okay over there. So we'll see we'll see what that means in terms of overall box office receipts for Pacific Rim. But that's a conversation for another day once we kind of see how everything shakes out. So I'll leave it at that for the box office. I can talk about this for a while. I know Andrew knows that, and in the interest of keeping things rolling here, I will talk about another comic book movie by the name of Captain Marvel. Which has officially begun principal photography. Now, interestingly enough, we saw some set pictures a couple weeks back of Brie Larson on set in like a green version of the Captain Marvel suit. I guess they did like a 1 week of filming to earn some tax credits or some shit like that to save themselves some money. Because I hadn't this already started filming? But apparently that's why that happened, and now the whole thing is officially, it's underway. Shooting in Fresno, California, and locations in Louisiana. And the press release that Marvel put out for this has some very, very intriguing details as far as the cast. So we knew that Brie Larson obviously would be Carol Danvers. We knew Samuel L. Jackson would be back as Nick Fury. We knew Ben Mendelsohn had joined the cast as the villain. We knew Jude Law was in the cast. What we didn't know is that Djimon Hounsou, Lee Pace, and Clark Gregg will be reprising their previous Marvel Cinematic Universe roles in this movie. So, just as a reminder, Djimon Hounsou played Korath the Pursuer. Lee Pace played Ronan the Accuser, and Clark Gregg played Agent Phil Coulson.
Oh, shit.
So they're back, baby.
Plays, right?
Well, in terms of movies, he hasn't made an on-screen appearance in the movie since 2012's The Avengers. So yes, he has been gracing the small screen as Agent Coulson and Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. But
he was mostly dead though. So I mean, I think
as far as I think the Avengers are concerned, they are under the impression that Agent Coulson is dead. I believe is kind of the assumption. I think so. This movie takes place in the 1990s, which would obviously explain why some of these characters that are either actually deceased or thought deceased would be making their return appearance. But I think this news is pretty fucking cool. Seeing some Kree warriors, so Korath and Ronan, it's pretty cool to see those guys. And I mean, Agent Coulson, maybe the early days of Agent Coulson. I'm stoked about this.
Maybe he'll get his Corvette.
I'm not sure they could convince me that Clark Gregg is 20 years younger than he was when he first started filming, but there's movie magic for everything.
Marvel, I mean, they're the masters of that de-aging technology.
I don't think anybody's the master. I've never been sold on de-aging or digitally recreating, but we'll see.
That Tron shit was pretty good. I know that.
It wasn't bad. I haven't seen it recently. I'll have to take another look at it.
No, it's really bad.
It was a little uncanny, but I mean, it was also like 5 years before Leia and Tarkin and all that kind of stuff. So I feel like for the time, it was probably pretty good. I feel like Lee Pace was a little bit wasted as Ronan. So hopefully we see. He should have been Nova, but hopefully we see like a different aspect of his character other than the loony character he plays in the. In Guardians. Maybe this is becoming a lunatic kind of
that might be cool.
Kind of what I'm hoping to see is him, being maybe more in line with the comic book version of Ronan the Accuser, and then maybe we see him kind of get twisted into that version that we eventually see in Guardians, or at least maybe kind of see him going on that path towards becoming that radical Kree that we see. So
yeah, I could dig that.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's pretty cool. It's going to be directed by Anna Boden and Ryan Fleck, and it will be in theaters on March 8th, 2019. So look forward to that, and look forward to our continued coverage of it as we get some more news on it. Last bit of movie news for the week, also in the world of Marvel Studios, Avengers Infinity War has received 5 new character posters. So each of these kind of has a group of different characters with a different color scheme that appears to the naked eye to correlate with the color scheme of the Infinity Stones. whether or not the placement of these characters has any relevance to the stones, to each other in terms of the plot elements in the movie, I think that will kind of remain to be seen. I think there's certainly some obvious thematic connections here. We see Black Widow and Hulk together on one. Obviously, they had their little love interest side story in Age of Ultron. We see Black Panther here with Okoye. That kind of checks out. So yeah, I'm curious to see how much this actually has any sort of connections to kind of the stories of the movie. But I think these are pretty nice character posters. It's interesting that there's...
What's the connection between War Machine and Falcon? Is that his name?
Falcon, yeah.
Yeah. What's the connection there?
I think they both fly. I think their characters both have the ability to fly.
Okay. This is true. Yeah, man.
I couldn't see anything, so I appreciate your input.
Vision can fly too, and technically Scarlet Witch, all those characters and that poster can fly.
That's got to be it.
Vision is a love interest with Scarlet. Maybe there's some, maybe there's something going down, man. You don't know.
Is this a second episode where we might talk about some man and synthetic relations?
That's
interesting. It's kind of become my thing.
That's what you're going to be known for.
Okay, yeah. Well, that is a pretty good running thread. I enjoy that. No, these are pretty cool. I found it interesting that there's only 5 and not 6. I do wonder if we'll get a 6th at some point with Thanos and the Black Order. Would be kind of my guess.
Oh, that would be dope. That would be cool.
Yeah, I like it. I like it. Any other thoughts you guys want to offer up on this?
No.
All right, very well. TV news. We have another poster of sorts. Westworld Season 2. We got a poster for that. Now, Jordan, I understand you have not watched Westworld Season 1, so we'll dance around any major Westworld Season 1 plot details. I assume you have not looked at this poster as well.
I have not. I heard there was Entertainment Weekly or something story that kind of talked about where the new season might be going, and some people considered it spoilerific, so I haven't avoided that kind of news. But it's on my to-do list. I'll probably try and get it done in the next couple of months. I'd watched the first episode or two, and I really enjoyed it. But I think I was watching it like through my video on demand, and it just wasn't a good system to do that. And I own the Blu-ray now, so I'll take it at my leisure and check it out in the near future.
It's good stuff, man. The poster looks pretty cool. I mean, it's
a poster.
It's a robot vulture. I mean, so I don't think that's too much spoilers.
Wow, you just spoiled the whole thing. Fucking robotic animals. Jesus
Robotic
Christ.
Animals, dude. They're out there. If you don't know.
No, it's definitely something that when you're kind of in the know, you could definitely see how this would be perceived as spoilerific for those who are not. So, we'll kind of leave it at that. Definitely get on that, Jordan. It's the season 2 is going to be airing its premiere on April 22nd, so you've got close to a month if you're trying to get caught up for the live viewing of season 2. I know I will be certainly recording it and following along on a week-to-week basis myself, so I look forward to it. More Deadpool news on the TV side of the house. I think back in May of last year, so this probably would have been before we started this podcast, so I don't know if we've ever talked about this project. Marvel and FX had come together with Atlanta creator, executive producer / star Donald Glover, who we will soon know as the younger Lando Calrissian, and we also know as Childish Gambino. They were all coming together to do an animated Deadpool project that was going to air on FXX, which is the comedy side of FX. That's not happening anymore. Due to creative differences, FX, Donald Glover, Stephen Glover, and Marvel Television have agreed to part ways on Marvel's Deadpool animated series, the network said in a statement Saturday. FX will no longer be involved with the project, but they do have an ongoing relationship with their partnership on Legion, which will continue. So, good news is Legion's still happening. That's not in jeopardy, which I didn't think it was. And then I saw that and I was just like, oh wait, was that ever in jeopardy? That would have been scary. But this Deadpool animated project is it's no longer happening. So... with the prospect of an animated Deadpool project, I mean, how does that sound to you guys? Obviously, it's not happening through FX, but if it did happen to, happen, if they were able to facilitate it happening through another network, is it something you guys would be interested to check out?
I don't know. That really didn't do anything for me. read the news, and it didn't. I don't know. I don't feel like I missed out on a lot. I'm sure I'd watch it. I'm sure it'd be okay, but I don't know. Those live action ones are enough for me. So
I think the only real reason I was ever interested was Donald Glover's involvement, just to kind of see what he was going to do with it. I think he's an interesting dude. I haven't seen Atlanta yet because it's one of those shows, like everything FX puts out, that they refuse to release on physical, and I don't like to pay to stream. I like to, either part of my streaming platform already or own the media. So I do mean to watch Atlanta, but I like Donald Glover in general.
He's a pretty talented dude.
Yeah, absolutely. In a lot of different ways, for sure. So Marvel, I guess, owns the TV rights to the X-Men characters. Is that why this is like a co-partnership? I kind of just, when it was announced, I just assumed it was FX doing their own thing, and obviously the buyouts purchase isn't official or anything like that. So that's why when I saw this news, I was like, oh, I didn't realize these were partnerships. I just assumed it's kind of, they had the rights to the characters on
Yeah,
TV
actually,
and the
that's a
screen.
good point. I do think, I think the live action and the animated rights, even within film and television, I think those are kind of split. So I think that even though I think Fox as a parent company would have the live action Deadpool rights, I don't think that they have the animated rights. So I think that's probably why Marvel and Marvel TV consequently have the television rights, and that's why they can come to the table with FX and say, hey, let's do this thing. So that's my understanding. That's my reading of the situation. That could be incorrect. Obviously the rights situation with a lot of the Marvel characters is pretty fucked. So certainly the Disney purchase would help clear out a lot of that and then make it a little bit simpler if and when that does actually come to pass. But that's my understanding anyway. So yeah, all right. I think that's the news for this week. Then you guys ready to talk some Pacific Rim?
Let's do it. I'm excited.
I'm in.
So, before we talk about Pacific Rim Uprising, I did want to have a brief moment to talk about the first Pacific Rim, directed by the now Oscar-winning Guillermo del Toro. This came out in 2013.
Hold on. That's not your job. I believe there's a certain somebody that says his name.
Guillermo del Toro.
Thank you,
Is
sir.
that what you're saying?
Yes, thank you, sir.
Guillermo del Toro.
I respect that callback. Thank you for that. Yes, that is the man that I'm referring to who directed Pacific Rim back in 2013. Before we get into the sequel, I figured I don't think we've really talked a whole lot about the original movie. Obviously, we've talked about the sequel as we've seen some trailers and marketing material leading up to its now release. But I for one, just to kind of briefly kick this off, I think the first Pacific Rim is fucking awesome. I mean, it's got issues, don't get me wrong, but to me it feels like a passion project for Del Toro, combining, the best elements of fucking giant robots and giant monster movies and smashing them together in a really successful way where, visually speaking, it's just absolutely stunning. A lot of the design work that went into it is incredibly impressive. Andrew, obviously, you talked about what went into the actual building process for that Jaeger head that they used, during the filming of it. And I feel like that's kind of reflective of the attention to detail that went into it. And fucking hell, that movie is so good. I rewatched it before I watched the sequel because I wanted a little bit of a refresher course. And of course, I'd seen it probably 4 or 5 times in theaters when it came out back in the day, but to me it still absolutely holds up. With that, I mean, what are you guys' thoughts on the original Pacific Rim?
What'd you think, Jordan?
Well, I think I've probably seen it 3 times total. Initially in theaters, I remember seeing it and loving it, and I think I probably texted Colton about how awesome I thought it was. And I went to see it again, and it's one of those movies that I felt didn't hold up as well on repeat viewing. Some of those flaws around the edges, I guess, stood out a little bit more, and just the awe of seeing this kind of thing wasn't quite there. So it's been probably 4 or 5 years since I've seen it, but I watched it again a couple days before the new one dropped, or before I personally watched the new one. and it was almost like seeing it for the first time again. It's really great. It's really fun. It's kind of when the passion project Colton talked about. You see, there's like some super robots, some real robots, some Godzilla. There's some clear, like, he grew up and watched this stuff, and nobody's ever really gotten the opportunity to do this on a Hollywood budget. And he did it great, and he knocked it out of the park. And it's a little sad that it didn't do phenomenally well, but obviously did well enough to do a sequel. Unfortunately, his involvement in the sequel is a producer. Beyond that, I don't know what he did. He may have just been credited and kind of out of the running, but it's great, and I'd recommend it to anybody.
Yeah, it's so fucking cool, man. I mean, like you said, you don't get to see these kind of things with a Hollywood budget, and that's exactly what you got with that first one. And there's just the soundtrack, the integration of practical effects like that giant Jaeger head and stuff. I mean, it was just really fucking cool. Yeah, I mean, I really enjoyed the first one. I didn't refresh myself. I feel like I've seen that movie. I kind of felt like I didn't have to refresh myself. I don't know. I watch it. I've seen it. I can't count how many times I've seen it. I really like it. I was pumped up with the second one coming out, and I knew I can't think of my words again. From the material that's come out, the advertising material that's come out, I wasn't expecting the same tier of movie that we got with the first one. But I was expecting large robots and giant monsters, and they took it in an interesting place that I didn't necessarily. I mean, I guess I kind of foresaw where they were going to take it, but I didn't think they were going to take it to as an extreme of a place as they did. So for that, I was kind of surprised, and I was kind of giddy whenever they took it to a different creative place, which I guess we'll probably get into spoilers.
Yeah, I think we can hold that thought, certainly.
Yeah, but it's I feel like the especially with Del Toro, not like you said, we don't know how involved he was in this creative process, but with him being loosely involved and not directly involved, I feel
if that really
right. I feel like with the material that they're using, I kind of feel like Del Toro is the only person I trust to cover giant monsters and fucking robots. You know what I mean? But besides not James Cameron, fucking Michael Bay. Michael Bay can obviously do it all day long. He can do it in his fucking sleep. But besides Michael Bay, Del Toro is my guy for this kind of stuff, and I'm not sure that I just kind of, you expect a degradation of quality. At least I did. But yeah, we'll see what happens. We'll get into it.
Sorry to cut you off.
Yeah, you're fine.
I do wonder in a post Oscar award winner world, if production of this had started 2 years later, whether they would have gone back to him. I mean, I don't know that would have helped the box office any, but just I guess just taking it seriously, or just who he is, Guillermo del Toro, more of a profile, I guess, on a national stage, whether they would have tried to get him involved in it, because to me it's still kind of shocking that it ever got made in the first place, the first one, and especially the sequel based on the performance of the first one. So
yeah, well, I mean, Del Toro is the master of starting projects and then usually not finishing them. I mean, so yeah, I agree. The fact that Pacific Rim, of all things, got a sequel in the first place is kind of something that you look at that and you're like, really? I mean, again, obviously, as all three of us have mentioned, I mean, we really, really loved the first one. And so I think we're all kind of excited to see a sequel, but I do agree with Andrew, personally, that when you see that Del Toro's not involved, you kind of just immediately like, okay, I definitely am expecting a bit of a downgrade, because Del Toro carries that sort of weight. Anything that he does, he puts his heart and soul into. Even if it's about fucking giant robots and fucking giant monsters fucking each other up, he's putting his heart into that movie, and you felt the heart in Pacific Rim, the first one. And so, Del Toro's not involved with this one. So who is involved with this one? Let me just do a little bit of a catch-up for our listeners to kind of talk about what Pacific Rim Uprising is from a creative standpoint. It's directed by Stephen S. DeKnight, who was the showrunner of the Spartacus series for Starz. He also showran the first season of Daredevil on Netflix. He co-wrote it alongside Emily Carmichael, Kira Snyder, and T.S. Nolan, and it is based on the characters that were created by Travis Beacham and Guillermo del Toro from the first Pacific Rim. Stars John Boyega, Scott Eastwood, I guess he's in this. Kaylee Spaney, Bern Gorman, Charlie Day, and Rinko Kikuchi, all the latter three reprising their roles from the first movie. It's about Jake Pentecost, the son of the legendary hero Stacker Pentecost, portrayed by Idris Elba in the original, who reunites with Mako Mori to lead a new generation of Jaeger pilots, including rival Lambert and 15-year-old hacker Amara, against the new kaiju threat. Now, obviously, for the purpose of this, if anyone hasn't watched any of the Pacific Rims, Jaeger is a giant robot, kaiju is a giant monster, so we can get that out of the way for the vernacular going forward. So I'm going to push this back to you, Andrew, because you kind of started getting into your thoughts on Uprising as you were kind of talking about the first Pacific Rim. So do you have anything more to kind of offer up as more specifically with the, talking about Uprising itself, where it landed for you?
Yeah, it was I thought that this movie was definitely more like if I was a 10-year-old kid going to see this movie, I don't think I would have, if I watched the first one on TV and then I went and saw this one in theaters, I think my world would have been lit on fire. Like I thought it would have been, I think I would have thought that it was ridiculously awesome. And I felt like it was probably tailor-fitted to a younger audience because just the writing. I thought the writing was kind of, it just a lot of the other stuff kind of just didn't. What it was going for didn't really feel earned. Like John Boyega's character, who is the son of legendary badass. And he, there was no mention of him in the first movie. Maybe legendary badass Stacker was his first name, right?
Yeah, Stacker. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, maybe Stacker hated his son, and his son's such a piece of shit that he doesn't ever want to talk to him or reference him. We're just going to reference my adopted daughter because I didn't like my son. I guess that could be a thing, maybe. But there's no reference to John Boyega in the first movie, and I guess that's not really that big of a deal. But there's a lot of things that happen in this movie that I just within the terms of the universe I kind of either have questions about or I don't think they really make sense. So I mean we can get, like I said, there's a lot to talk about in the spoiler section, I think. But if we're gonna break down the quality of the film and stuff, I think that and where it lands with me, I think the writing was definitely very subpar. I think that the use of the actual Jaegers, I didn't think the Jaegers were that badass. From the trailers and stuff with the Morning Star fist dude and stuff, and the swords and everything that they had going on. I felt very underwhelmed from the Jaegers. I didn't get that sense of badassery that I got from the first movie. Not to the same extent, anyways. The kaiju, I guess that one kaiju at the end was pretty cool, but I was kind of, I don't know, the whole film as a whole was kind of underwhelming for me. I really didn't, I had fun with it and it was okay, but I didn't get nearly as pumped up while I was watching it as I did with the first one. That's kind of where it stands for me. It's definitely a step down. It's a good step down. Definitely a couple of notches for me personally. What'd you think about it,
Jordan?
Yeah, I think I'd echo a lot of the same sentiments. Starting with, I don't know if we talked about this the last time I was on the show, but when I first saw the trailer, I'm like, it's like the anime version of Pacific Rim, and I feel like that carried through even into the full movie as opposed to the 2-minute trailer. It's just it's very tropey. The writing's a little sloppy. It feels like a different genre. It feels like like there's like cadet school and bringing people in, and it just feels I can't really find a frame of reference for the movie. I don't know, like Starship Troopers. I feel like there's like a training, and then they face the threat, and it's not even Starship Trooper quality, I don't think.
But
it's enjoyable. I didn't hate watching it. I just it's a
movie.
It's not what I would have wanted to see, but it's not bad. It's pretty cool, but it's not great.
All right, yeah. I mean, to add my 2 cents, I think that you both are pretty much on the money. Walking out, I was just like, okay, it wasn't good. It wasn't a good movie, but I had fun with it. I did have fun with it. I did enjoy it. I mean, honestly, it's kind of if to compare it to just something very recently, I thought it was kind of the same feeling I had watching Tomb Raider, where I'm like, you change a thing here and there, this becomes really good. But it kind of misses the mark by not taking advantage of those opportunities. So I enjoy what is on screen, but I can't help but pick at something here and be like, well, why didn't they do this and that? I think that would have worked better. There's a lot of like little things in that where I'm just like, I see where this could have been better, and I feel like I don't know that it would have necessarily met the mark that the first one set down by any stretch of the imagination, but I kind of felt like they kind of squandered the opportunity to really take it into the best direction they could. I do think that certainly, as Andrew was talking about, it does take it to some interesting places in terms of the plot development, which I enjoyed. I thought that it was nice that it didn't totally feel like a rehash of the first one. And that's good and bad, obviously. Jordan, you mentioned that it kind of felt like a different genre. Well, I mean, they said at least it did kind of somewhat set its own identity. It's a worse identity, I would say. But it did kind of do its own thing in that regard. So I think that, if nothing else, by the end of the movie, it does certainly deliver on the promise of, the Jaegers fighting the kaiju. I think we do get that kind of payoff. I think it's a little long-winded kind of getting to that point, but then again, the first one kind of did the same thing. I mean, the first one had an excellent beginning, and this one I kind of felt like needed that same kind of hook that the first one had. The first one begins with that big confrontation where Raleigh loses his brother, and this one kind of just felt like it didn't really have that sort of punchiness right at the beginning, so it kind of dragged its feet getting going, and by the time it did kind of get to the point where I'm like, all right, this is what I paid money to see, I was like, okay, I'm enjoying it now, but I felt like even for a movie that was sub 2 hours, it almost took too long to get to that point, I felt. But I did, as I said, I enjoyed it. I'm a little bit soft on it, I imagine, just because I have such a reverence, I think, for the first movie. So it's disappointing, I think, in terms of certainly how it treated some of the characters or how it not referenced some of the characters from the first movie. I mean, as a continuation, it definitely felt like something that was content to kind of do its own thing, which... it definitely worked as its standalone movie. I mean, the beginning was very much like watching the beginning of the first movie over again, where it's just like, let's get you set up in this world, which is fair. I mean, it's been 5 years, I guess, obviously, since the first one came out, and it's not like that one exactly did all that well, as we've talked about. So certainly kind of maybe trying to craft this one as something that is more primed to be successful for possible future installments. It's probably the best way to handle it, but writing, sloppy, dumb. I mean, it's some of it is incredibly dumb. Some of it's totally fine. Character work, I thought, was underdeveloped across the board. I think there was just kind of too many characters that they try to kind of spread it throughout. But in terms of the acting, I thought that John Boyega was a great addition as the main character. Certainly the connections between him and Stacker, I do agree, were kind of just, okay, yeah, there was no reference to this in the first movie, but I thought that he definitely took what he had and ran with it. I wish I could say the same thing about Scott Eastwood, who I know we've talked about on this podcast, and every time I see him in something, I just wonder, I mean, I don't wonder. I get it. It's nepotism. All it is nepotism. He's a handsome guy, but holy shit, he's terrible in this. Like,
it's not just nepotism. I don't think it's spoilers to say that John Boyega tells you very explicitly why he's in this movie. And in Scotty's defense, I will say I normally find him to be like a vacuum that sucks the joy out. And this, I felt him just to be a void that added nothing. So that's my endorsement of Mr. Eastwood.
I think that with a lot of the characters here, a lot of them didn't have a whole lot to work with, and I don't think that his character had much to work with. If we're gonna play the defend Scott Eastwood game, which I'm starting to throw up a little bit in my mouth thinking about it, but I thought that the character work again. I think even for its lead, I just kind of felt like the whole plot behind Boyega's character's motivations, I was kind of just like, all right, okay, okay, this could be better. I thought Amara was fine. I kind of liked her as an addition to the cast. Having obviously this certainly went for having a younger cast. That whole cadet school that you mentioned, Jordan, was obviously, I feel like, very much deliberately designed to have more of a probably younger age appeal. I guess, Andrew, you mentioned that as well. So I kind of felt like that element worked and didn't work at times for me. So
I think it's a heavy anime element, I think.
Yeah, that's definitely fair. I mean, it's a step down from the first one in a pretty big way, but I think that it's coming off of something that I think was really great. I think something that, for a genre piece, really just kind of nailed it for me, and I think that this one has enough moments in it to make me enjoy it overall. But it is one of those things where it is mildly disappointing that this is kind of the sequel we ended up getting. I mean, for me, I mean, we'll talk about possible sequels, I guess, probably in spoilers. But it's the thing for me where I'm like, you guys were way lucky to even get this one chance. I think that you should have taken. I think it's disappointing that they didn't fully take advantage while they had the opportunity, because I think this probably was their opportunity. If I'm wrong on that, then so be it. Obviously, we'll talk about it at another point. But that's kind of where I'm at with it. I mean, recommendation. You guys want to do a recommendation of this?
Yeah, we got to get into spoilers, man. There's a lot to talk about.
Okay. Well, before we do that, then, where would you guys land on recommendations? So, Jordan, I don't know if you remember our scale, but we don't really remember it ourselves, so just make up whatever. It really doesn't matter at this point. We've given up on that.
We talked about all three.
We used three recommendation levels. So
I'd recommend it for theater, with a disclaimer, I guess. I don't want to say for a certain category of people. If you enjoy a popcorn movie, spectacle, if you like the first one, it's worth seeing. If you enjoy critiquing a movie, there's a lot to critique here. But if you find yourself picking apart a movie and obsessing over the flaws, there's enough here that you'll be obsessed by the end. So I'd say it's worth watching in theaters, despite all those flaws. It's worth watching. It's also perfectly fine to catch on Blu-ray or even on premium cable down the road. But personally, if you got any interest in this area, I'd say it's worth watching in the theaters.
Yeah, I think it's an experience that's worth having in the theaters. I mean, where else are you going to be able to, I paid to see it in IMAX. I didn't movie pass it or anything else. So my ticket cost me, I think, $17 or $18, and I wasn't upset about spending $17 or $18 on it. Where else are you going to go? I mean, what other movie can you go see a giant robot fight? Right? I mean, if you're into that sort of thing, man, it's definitely worth going to see it in a movie theater. Just because, like I said, it's a spectacle and it's an experience. It's not the best movie in the world, but it's probably, aside from Michael Bay's franchise, and I don't think he's got one coming out this year. I don't know.
We got Bumblebee, but he's not doing it, so.
Right, John Cena's doing it, right?
Yeah, John Cena. Yeah, well, I don't think he's directing it, but he's going to be in it.
Anyways, you're not going to go see a whole lot of robots this year. Go see a giant robot in theaters, man. It's cool.
I'll kind of blend maybe both of your guys' recommendation. I think that I also went and saw it in IMAX, spent less money than you did, obviously, Andrew, but I was happy with making the trip, with spending the money to see it in IMAX. But again, I say that as someone that came into this movie loving the first one, but also kind of expecting a bit of a downgrade. And I saw it a couple days after it came out, so obviously I'd had some. I think Andrew, you'd kind of briefly mentioned your thoughts on it before I walked in it, and I'd seen the reviews for it, which were obviously kind of pointing in the direction of, look, it's fun, but don't expect a whole lot of, don't expect anything deep going in. And I think that's pretty good summary of it. So I would say certainly if you're kind of in the same bracket, I think that we are, where you enjoyed the first one and it's something that intrigues you. I mean, I guess maybe if you didn't see the first one, but it's the sort of genre thing that appeals to you. It's the type of movie that has enough spectacle in it that it certainly merits a theater viewing. If you have a movie pass, certainly utilize it for this. If you're willing to shell out the extra couple bucks for IMAX, then by all means. But I wouldn't say that unless you kind of absolutely kind of know what to expect walking in. I wouldn't recommend you spend $20 on it necessarily. But yeah, I mean, I think that if you have any sort of a predisposition to this kind of thing, then give it a go. It's probably going to be worth your time. It's going to be frustrating at times, I think, watching it because it is sloppy in its execution. But I think by the end of this movie, I was won over by it. In terms of enjoying it.
I think if you have kids, it's a good kid movie.
Yeah, that's true too. I think some kids. Although, actually, I totally forgot about this. I don't know how I forgot about it. When I saw it, I had a 2-year-old about one row above me and a little bit to the left that was screaming throughout the entire thing. Not like an infant, not like a baby screaming, but like just yelling. Like they weren't screaming like because they were in distress. They were just yelling throughout the whole thing. Not like, I don't think they were scared by it, but it's just a fucking little kid responding to super loud robots and super loud monsters and super loud IMAX noises. And I'm just like, maybe don't take a kid that young. Maybe give them a few years and then take them along
definitely fair.
To the point where they can, sit respectfully and enjoy a movie. I think that, certainly it does have very much of a younger crowd appeal vibe to it. So that's a good point. So that's my recommendation on it. Let's jump into spoilers then. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Full spoilers for Pacific Rim Uprising. Who wants to begin here?
Jordan, you want to go first?
Well, I have a lot of thoughts, but I don't know that it's entirely appropriate just to straight up list them. But I guess the whole issue of retconning is where I would start. So, him being the kid doesn't make any sense with the first movie, but they kind of set up, they had a falling out, and I can kind of see it. And the moment that makes me think, okay, I can kind of deal with this one is the moment where in the first movie, I can't remember exactly what sparks. I think it might be the failed startup between Mako and Raleigh, and he tries to confront Stacker. Raleigh does, and he grabs him by the arm and turns him around, and there's the physical acting that Idris Elba gives as he jerks his body around, and the glare he gives him, like the physical presence and the intimidation. Like, I could see that being a guy that has a falling out with his son and then never talks about him again. So I can kind of see it, but it's still, I don't have a problem with it because it let Boyega use his accent, and I think his accent's great. I thought, I can't remember his name now, the guy who played Raleigh, Charlie Hunnam, his accent, I thought, it's okay. A lot of people found it passable. People say he does great on Sons of Anarchy, but as soon as I heard him talking, I'm like, this guy's not American. So it wasn't like it was horrible like the Australian accents in the movie were, but it just wasn't good. So I'm glad they let him do his thing. Although I think his Finn is fine, so I think he probably can do an American accent a little bit better. The fact that Raleigh wasn't mentioned at all was really weird to me. Like, not even as obscure.
No, he was mentioned once.
Oh, I think they mentioned him as like a hero or something.
Yeah. He's given his war speech, and he mentions him as a hero of the war.
Yeah, like what happened to him, or he and Mako a thing, or like the fact that they had one and not the other, and like, I mean, it may have been just because Charlie Hunnam was too good for this. I don't know. I know he was originally going to be in 50 Shades of Grey, and he realized I'm too good for this. So it's not above him to be too good for something, but just like there should have been some, just like, he retired, he's the next generation. I mean, I wouldn't want them to like kill him off screen or anything like that, but just some kind of acknowledgement of his contribution to the show. And I kind of hate to jump right to the end, of the plot, but the whole heavy metals combining with the kaiju blood as the reason, like they trace all their routes to Mount Fuji, like it's completely contradictory to the first movie. It doesn't make any sense because it's a Pacific Rim. If that was all it took, literally the first kaiju could have terraformed the world. So that's just a dumb plot point. And it didn't need to be a plot point either. I mean, it could just be, whatever they wanted it to be, but like that, they're going to this place and it's going to be a massive explosion that ruins it. That one bothered me just because it was completely contradictory and dumb, and the other stuff I could deal with, I just didn't agree with. So that's where I'd like to start. If you gentlemen have thoughts on that and want to carry us forward into the next area.
I have thoughts on that. So to your last point, I do fully agree with that. I think that they could have just framed it as their new plot of, fuck it, we're going to go to Mount Fuji and blow this whole place to high hell. Like, that's a new plot. I feel like there was no reason to kind of retcon it in a way that, like you said, kind of completely contradicts the events of the first movie.
Well, it's all because Eastwood says, in order to beat your enemy, you got to know their plans, or whatever the fuck he says. You know
yeah,
what I'm
but
saying?
if you look at where they were in the first movie, they clearly were not trying to make their way to Japan.
Well,
like they said that was their route, but they're taking some very indirect fucking routes because they're all originating from a single breach. So why are they all going in different directions?
they're confused, man. They didn't have.
They're disoriented. They didn't have their GPS on.
Right. It's because they explored Homeboy's brain. They were in his brain, and now they have the map of the Earth. They didn't have that
maybe.
before.
All right, there we go. Plot has been resolved. To your other point, Jordan, talking about Charlie Hunnam not reprising his role. So I have a couple notes to add on that. He was in the original draft of this movie, but he had scheduling conflicts doing a couple other movies. So that is why he is not present. So they wrote him out of the movie. However, there was a version of this movie where he was up on the wall as one of the fallen, alongside Mako after she dies, and alongside the Sergei, the Cherno Alpha pilot we see in Stacker up there. So they obviously were like, you know what, let's just leave this completely open-ended in case we, knock on wood, get that sequel, and maybe if things kind of work out, we can explain where he's been, why he was completely absent for all of the events of this, and why and bring him back in some capacity if we're given that opportunity. So it's that's kind of the official line on that anyway.
I guess that would mean that he would probably be alive, since Mako wasn't in combat and she ended up in the wall. So theoretically, all your Jaeger pilots would end up on the wall. But I guess technically she was still serving the group. But I feel like if he had died, he would have been on the wall as like a hero of the world.
Right, right.
But so I feel like thinking about that in context, like that means he has to be alive. There's just he's elsewhere.
He could have been one of the. He could have been one of the guys in the white suits getting zapped when he was hanging up on the thing. Maybe he took a contract with that chick. You know what I'm saying?
I'm going to say probably not.
Well, I mean,
I guess that there's nothing I don't think that directly contradicts that, other than no. That sounds like a really bad direction to pull it into. But
nothing contradicts that other than
no.
other than my brain saying that's stupid and I don't want it.
Well, I tell you what is stupid. You're telling me that the world's defense, these giant-ass robots, the military does not have anybody but the current pilots and a pilot school of 7 students.
Well, I think it's kind of glossed over, but all the Jaeger pilots get killed in the attack on that base.
Yeah, that didn't really work for me either, I guess.
I agree. It's kind of stupid.
Like I mean, it does, like, it's like the anime thing again. Like, you got to get these 15-year-olds fine, but like the whole idea of a cadet school, like, it implied that like everybody went through the cadet school, and drifting is like you just got to practice it, which again is contradictory. I mean, this
the first one, right?
Didn't bother me as much as the whole like blow up Mount Fuji plot, but it's like they were all like regional. Like, I mean, obviously there was a coalition, but it didn't give me the impression there was an academy, which is like you find people with this talent that have the ability, that know how to fight, and like you just pull these scrappers off the streets that have, so it did seem contradictory, and I don't know.
I thought that was so fucking stupid. I have a giant problem with that. Like, if I was 16 and I got, I may have built an airplane, right? But I went over to the Zephyr Hills airport over here and I don't know. I stole an airplane. but I piloted it really good.
Just a part of an airplane, not the whole thing.
Yeah, and I made my own airplane. I fly into Zephyr Hills and I crash that shit in Main Street or whatever. Okay, Air Force is not going to pick me up, and then somebody's going to attack an air base, and I'm going to be the save. I'm going to be me and my other buddies over here that were also picked up from stealing airplane parts or whatever are going to be piloting all the airplanes. They're going to bring pilots in from some other place to fly the airplanes. You know what I'm saying? It just doesn't make any sense. I think it's I mean, I got a problem with it.
I think you kind of see that like in the real world with like hackers. Those kind of people are sometimes brought in to work from the inside to improve security, to notice flaws and holes in security systems, that kind of stuff. So it's not like it's a completely unheard of concept, but in the context of this movie, in the context of what you're talking about, yeah, it's kind of a ridiculous conceit that's like, oh, they're the best. This is the candidate we want. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, and honestly, I think I had more problem with Boyega's character in the situation that he was, where it's, you can either go to prison or you can head up this academy of cadets. What?
You can teach her only pilots, the only backup string pilots.
I thought that, obviously he had, he was originally a ranger, however many, I guess probably 10 years ago is what they said, right? When the events of the first movie happened. I kind of just felt like those are the options that he has. Like, that seems kind of, it is interesting. I mean, I think that's kind of silly because it's kind of one of those things where I'm like, how, I guess it's probably kind of what you guys are alluding to is like, how are things in such dire straits that if the pilots of all Jaegers just all get killed at the same time, like, this is your backup option? Like, that's it? That's all you have left? Like, which I think that's kind of silly. I mean, having an infrastructure like that in place definitely seems like a bad idea. Right. I guess it worked out for everyone, but except for that one guy that they say there was one kid that bit it, I guess, at the end there. So
yeah, which brings me to another problem. These fucking kids, man. These kids are awful. I did not enjoy the kids.
I didn't hate the kids. I thought they were fine. I thought they were like 2D cardboard cutouts with no personality and development.
That's where I was. Yeah,
but they were fine. Like the Russian chick, like the conflict there was whatever. But like, I think the main girl, I liked her. She
was okay.
She was. I thought she was good, and she was like set up as a main character, and then she sat on the bench for 2/3 of the movie, which I wasn't really expecting. But I thought they were fine. I didn't dislike them. I just didn't think that they were fine. They were there.
I tell you what I did enjoy. I enjoyed, and there were two parts I really enjoyed. I enjoyed seeing her parents got stepped on the dock. I said, "Oh shit!" out loud. I thought that part was pretty funny. I don't know. I laughed pretty good at that part.
It's a little morbid. Okay.
It was. Jump, I'll catch you. Boom, stepped on by the giant kaiju.
To be clear, she could not have made that jump. Like, I mean, obviously she would have been stepped on if she had made the jump, but she also would have like died and impaled herself on some of like the broken like
the dock,
pier in the water and drowned. So like her parents were like advocating for her to kill herself. So fuck those people. They deserve to be stepped on.
I kind of feel like, and granted, I'm not a dad, so I don't know, but I feel like I'd be the one making that jump instead of telling my 5-year-old daughter to make this ridiculous jump.
That's a good point. Dad should jump to her and then send mom and the other kids like, you run that way, I'm gonna stay with her, and we're gonna meet up when we can. Like that's
as we've established, he's not a good dad, so it's par for the course. Okay.
Yeah.
The other part I enjoyed is when they were flying the remote controlled fucking goddamn Jaegers. And then they started twitching out, and then all of a sudden they turn into anime monsters. I thought that was cool. I enjoyed the anime monsters.
It's kind of Evangelion a little bit, like when the creatures are revealed beneath the armor. It's the organic, like just kind of the gross, like thread and the veins and bursting through the armor.
That was kind of cool. Yeah, I like that. I like that.
I didn't love it as a plot point, but visually I thought it was interesting.
I thought it was an actually interesting plot point. Personally,
so did I.
I
didn't have a problem with it.
I thought that the whole idea of, I mean, the execution of it is something else that I thought was kind of lacking, in the sense that Charlie Day kind of being the big bad was a little bit. I saw a lot too much of Charlie Kelly in that performance, where I'm just like, the gang destroys the world. I was waiting for the title card to pop up at some point.
I also felt he kind of showed up for a paycheck. I didn't enjoy his performance this movie.
Well, he was kind of doing his whole manic Charlie Kelly performance. I felt like, and I liked that. I mean, I honestly liked the idea of, okay, he's drifted with the kaiju brain so many times that, you know, he's been fucked up by it and his mind's been corrupted and kind of taken over by that. I thought that was kind of a neat kind of way to kind of play on the events of the first one. I thought the performance itself was kind of just all right. I mean, it was very silly. But I thought that the idea of him kind of, you know, having the subroutine of the drones, you know, being infected with the kind of the organic kaiju brains that they've cloned and replicated or whatever it was, that I liked. You know, the whole ability to open the new breaches. I thought the whole. I thought that was kind of a fun way to take it. I mean, well, I don't know if I would have taken it that way, but I thought that was a fun way to take it.
It's not that they only corrupted, or it's not that he was corrupted by that existing brain. The aliens on their home planet or whatever were actually actively like communicating. You know what I mean, and establishing that plan, right? Or was he straight up corrupted? Because I was under the impression that they were communicating with him.
I don't think it's really clear whether the corruption, because they flash back to the time he jumped or what it drifted with himself, because the second drift with the other doctor, whose name I can't recall, wasn't shown in like the quick flashback. But I've got a couple thoughts and a couple contradictory feelings on that. I didn't like I like the concept of the Charlie turn. I just didn't like the way it was executed. And like the whole Alice, the brain in his apartment that nobody knows about, I thought was really dumb.
That was dumb. Yes.
And plus they blew up the what are they called, the forerunners or precursors?
Precursors. Yeah,
precursors. They blew them up at the end of the first movie. So I think if they'd sold it as the corruption was there, like it took over his mind, he programmed these drones, and like they didn't turn into kaiju, but they just, you know, became, you know, serve his mission, open the rifts, and that's how the new kaiju come. Like I could have bit on that a little bit more, but what I said kind of contradictory, because like one of my complaints is there wasn't enough kaiju Jaeger action. It was Jaeger. It was man Gundam versus man versus it lacked, and this is maybe going back to what you're talking about, like having that PG-13, that children appeal. Like it just was so much less visceral. Like there's scenes from the first movie, like empty the clip, and they're blowing gaping holes in the cavities of these kaiju, and even in the final confrontation when they're fighting a kaiju and they're doing all their jumpy and slashy, and there's no damage. It's just like, you know,
and let's just point out fucking sword. And when they're in the fucking midair and they fucking slice that thing in half.
Yeah, they're in fucking space and cuts his...
That is the hypest shit in the first movie for me.
Kidding.
Is quote-unquote sword. It's just seeing that shit.
It's very clean, very sterile, like the whole way through. So even when you get to the kaiju action, it's just it's not the same impact, and that was a big disappointment to me. Is there wasn't enough kaiju action, and when there was, it wasn't that great. Comparatively, I mean, it wasn't bad. It wasn't like, oh shit, this is terrible. It was just, it wasn't as exciting and
nothing was as visually interesting either. I mean, that whole Hong Kong sequence in the first one is just beautiful to look at. And this one, I mean, everything's pretty much in the daylight, which is kind of a nice change from the first one. But it's all kind of samey feeling by the end, and it's just not as interesting.
He wasn't dragging a fucking boat across the street. You know what I'm saying?
That was one of my favorite things.
They were pulling they using the gravity thing to pull buildings. Like they don't give a fuck. Like all the civilians have been magically cleared out. It's totally fine. We can just destroy this whole city, kind of killing this thing. I was just like, to be fair, fuck it.
Oh no, I guess they used the gravity thing. That was in Sydney. There was no war. And I was going to say, to be fair, in Japan, like allegedly they had head time, but they were still like getting into shelters like as landfall was being made. I mean, they would have known for hours. They waited. That doesn't make any sense. But yeah, like
people are dumb. It's totally fine.
What was
Big Monster? He's not going to come here. We're going to be fine. Oh shit! There he is.
One thing I want to talk about is the romantic interest for both Eastwood and Boyega.
Yeah, what was that? Why was that even there?
Maybe her name is Julie, but I'm not sure because she doesn't matter. And why?
I have no clue what was going on there. I don't know if there was something that got cut, but holy shit, that was completely pointless. And I like her character was nothing. Her character, I mean, I guess she was an engineer. Was that what she was? I think I don't. Because I think she kind of helped them fix up the Jaegers, right?
Repair
when they all
team,
got fucked up. Yeah.
Yeah.
But she had. I mean, she was not a character. She was eye candy, and like the whole love triangle there. I mean, it really wasn't even a love triangle. It was just
it's like
she's hot.
Like,
do you think she likes us? Like what's going on here?
I thought maybe they were doing like an X-Men thing. Like she was with Scott Eastwood.
Okay.
And it kind of made it seem like no, she wasn't. She was just like he was into her, and it's like, but like nah. I mean, like there were like a couple one-liners that were okay. I know they got a couple chuckles, but like it was just a complete waste. Like if you're looking for fat to trim, like that was something that could have been trimmed.
I would definitely agree with that. Where it was just. Yeah, it had absolutely no purpose and no payoff at all in any way. So it was definitely something that.
What are you talking about? She kissed Scotty, and he was like ooh, and then she kissed Nate Pentecost, and then he was like ooh, now I'm very confused.
No, it's Jake Pentecost.
Jake.
Nate is the other guy's character.
Okay.
What's his face? Scott Eastwood. That's his
so the names are a disappointment coming from Raleigh and Yancey. Yancey's a classic, and Hercules, and I'm sure there's a few others. Yeah. So Nate and Jake, I'm a little disappointed. Stacker. His dad's name is Stacker.
His dad's name is Stacker. His name's his kid Jake. What a fuck up. No wonder he disowned him. He probably changed his name from something cool ass.
He was probably adopted too. He was probably adopted too. He came with that name.
I will say I thought the Jaeger names were pretty ballin' though. Well, we had Gypsy Avenger, obviously a nice reference to Gypsy Danger, but we got Bracer Phoenix, Saber Athena, Titan Redeemer, Guardian Bravo, Obsidian Fury. Those are pretty cool.
Those are pretty cool.
It's all right. They're a little corny.
I mean, the first one had what? You said Gypsy Danger, Cherno Alpha, Crimson Typhoon, Striker Eureka.
Those are cool too. They're all fucking cool.
Do you have a list in front of you, or are you just like incredible?
I had a list of the new ones, but I know the other ones off the top of my head. Wow. And then there's I think Stackers is Coyote Tango, if I'm not mistaken. That's the one he uses in the flashback.
Coyote Tango. That's fucking cool.
There's Tacit Ronin, I think, was one we seen one of the montages at the beginning. I could be wrong.
I tell you what was cool was the Russian one. The chick in the Russian, she gets in that gun in the stomach. That was pretty fucking cool.
That was a moment. Like the third act for me, like I agree that it was not as good as the action from the first one, but there were moments in the third act where I was just like the first two acts of the movie. I'm just like, the third act when that kind of got going, when you started to see some of that footage that we saw in the trailer, I was kind of like, all right, I'm fucking into this. And then, when she drops into, because I was wondering about that, I was like, okay, they got the two Jaeger pilots and she's just chilling in the back. What's she doing? And then I see what she's doing. I'm like, that's pretty fucking cool. I like that. Cool. I like that bit. I like that. Yeah.
And then the fast one with the two swords kicking and everything, that was pretty cool. There was some cool stuff with it. I really did enjoy the turning of those robots though. I got kind of excited when that happened. Did you enjoy the little transformer robot, the Scrapper? Turns into the ball.
It's very, very. I don't know. I mean, I liked the idea of it, and I thought at least they kind of carried it through the end and made it have some sort of actual narrative impact. I saw someone, I think on Reddit, suggest that it would have made more sense if Mako kind of survived to the end, and then she co-piloted Gypsy with Jake at the end, and then that would give the opportunity for Amara to use Scrapper and kind of do the exact same thing, but at least character motivation-wise, it all would have kind of worked out. Also, they wouldn't have done Mako dirty like the way they did, which we haven't even talked about, by the way, but I was kind of pissed that they just kind of killed her off like that. I kind of felt like that did a disservice to the first movie. I feel like if you wanted to kill her, I think that certainly you could have constructed that in a way that it could have been a little bit more of an emotional payoff. Maybe make her, one of the Jaeger co-pilots that gets kind of killed in that base attack. I feel like that would have been something to maybe play with. But
and I have to ask a question here.
Okay.
Maybe I'm wrong. I might be wrong, but did the chick piloting, I can't remember her name, the chick that pilots Scrapper at the end, the CEO of that company or whatever.
Okay, yeah.
Does she not recognize her robot trampling all over Sydney?
I did have that question too. Where was Obsidian Fury built? And I think the implication is it wasn't built by them like the drones were. But that does leave the question of where the hell did somebody build a Jaeger?
Well, there was that whole Siberian base that Mako left that encoded message that they kind of reconstructed. So maybe it was built there because that's where they put. Yeah. That's where they bring Gypsy, and then it's kind of waiting for Gypsy there. So that would be my guess.
Destroys its first action is not to attack Gypsy, but to destroy the facility. So that kind of makes sense. But again, the money and the materials and
because it was a state of the art fucking thing, right?
Well, then didn't Charlie Day say something about how he'd kind of been using the funds that, or
just a little bit here, a little bit there. Maybe I just wasn't paying attention. I guess.
I don't know.
But like automated processes and like make small modifications. But I mean, it's a plot hole. I mean, I like Scrapper. Like, how is this person going to build Scrapper? That's not like a plot hole. It's just like a contrivance, I guess. Like, it's not. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just not really feasible, but that I think is just kind of a plot hole.
Well, then another thing is too, though, like if you're maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'm looking too deep into it, but if you're stealing company parts to make a robot in Siberia, like I feel like, hey, listen, we're capturing video footage of in the middle of the day of this giant robot kicking this other robot's ass. Wouldn't you? I mean, I don't know how many variations of parts she puts out on her robots because all the other robots look the same, but you seem like you would think that you would be able to recognize the robot. You know what I'm saying?
Well, yeah, I think the simplest explanation here is that we're putting more thought into this than the writers put into the actual script itself. So
it's one of those deals.
There's a lot of that in this movie where it's just kind of like,
there's got to be a better way.
Yeah. So, yeah.
I think that's my judgment for the whole movie. There's got to be a better way.
I mean, honestly, I think we could go for a while here just poking at things here and there, and I'm like, that doesn't really work or add up, does it? And I think that's just one of many things here. But I had fun with it, so
Yeah, I do feel like this has become a list of, like I said at the beginning, kind of like a list of grievances. And obviously, we all three did enjoy the movie to pretty similar extents actually, but we didn't like hate it. It's just the problems, and that's what could have made from enjoyable to good. But as far as the Mako going back, I mean, I actually kind of had the exact same thoughts. Like, not even if they had to make her die in a more epic way or anything like that, but just like have an emotional resonance and a meaning other than he looks really sad as he's slow-mo can't make the catch, and then he looks at her picture on a wall and then he's like chill, he's like I'm good.
They never really seem to pick up on that thread going forward. Like they acknowledge that she's dead, and then it like doesn't really seem to be his motivation throughout. Like, I guess if they wanted to use it as such, then at least lean into it. I guess it just kind of felt like once she was dead and once she was acknowledged, yeah, she's dead, that was it. It was kind of the end of Mako's story. And I was like,
the only thing I can see, and it's not on the nose, and it's good obviously not to be on the nose and direct about it, is like he starts like wearing the uniform and like being serious and taking a leadership role. So like I guess the implication is like shit's got real and I need to take this seriously. But I mean I don't know. That's kind of the only thing I can see, and I'm not sure if that was their intent there either.
Yeah, I guess I could see that. Yeah,
he could have just caught her with her fucking gravity hand. Just saying. But
it's possible.
I don't know.
Maybe. Yeah, well, he wasn't.
I guess he could have cooked her in it too. I mean, if he could have caught her, maybe it gets hot and could have cooked her, microwaved her. I don't know, but I don't know, man.
As opposed to the heat she experienced when the helicopter crashed and burned, I'm sure she would have at least taken the chance of not burning from the gravity sling.
Anyway, yeah. So that's Pacific Rim.
That is Pacific Rim Uprising. So I guess just the last couple thoughts before we move on. Where the fuck was Hannibal Chow and his goddamn shoe? Ron Perlman not making a reappearance. I was a little disappointed. I was hoping for a little bit more cameo action.
There was a stinger, wasn't there? I didn't watch the credits, but he cut himself out or something like. Is that right?
Yeah.
Am I imagining that?
Yeah. That's in the middle of the Pacific Rim credits. But we did get a stinger in this one as well, which apparently Tomb Raider started the trend of boom title card, boom post credits, or I guess post-title card scene or whatever the hell you want to call it. So we got some very obvious sequel bait here.
We're coming for them.
Third movie should have get made. They're going to go for the precursors. They're going to fuck their day up, even though I guess they didn't fuck it up enough in the first movie, as you guys talked about.
Yeah, it was just a military base. They could have they're going to destroy the whole world.
Yeah, they didn't blow up everything, just a little subsection of it. Yeah, that's fair. What did you guys think about the inclusion of this scene here?
That is what we describe as cringe on the internet. It was really bad.
It's unnecessary, right?
Yeah, it's definitely unnecessary.
But it was more bad than unnecessary.
If you wanted to make a movie about going to blow up their planet or whatever, why didn't you just make that movie in the first place?
Yeah. Could have done it. You could have changed the pacing of this whole movie, and it could have ended with the same tropes as the first one, and it would have been all right. You know what I mean?
I just think that it's one of those things where I'm like, look, you're lucky to have this movie even exist in the first place. Why are you gonna set up a sequel that we know is probably not going to happen?
Pacific Rim 3, directed by Michael Bay.
Please, God, no. Don't you put that evil on me, Ricky Bobby. I'll be honest. I will definitely watch a Pacific Rim 3 if it gets made. I just think that it's silly to do that sort of thing where, like, you're walking a very fine line. Like, you cannot. I don't know. I mean, just make concern yourself with making a good movie, and if the opportunity presents itself to make another movie, okay, great. From that point you can proceed. But it's just like, just stay in your fucking lane. That's how I felt about it. Where it was just like, okay, all right. Well, there's another movie we won't get. So I don't know. I mean, I guess maybe if they make a fucking animated show continuation or a comic book continuation, Buffy style, then I'd maybe check that out if it wasn't shit or whatever. But
I'd watch a fucking anime of this show. I would watch it.
Yeah. we already watched the anime.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's true.
Speaking of anime, I didn't want to get past final thoughts without mentioning a particular Easter egg.
Yes.
I don't know if you guys are covering. I assume you are probably next week. Ready Player One, and people complain about the list. The nostalgia vomit, or just like lists of 80s nostalgia, but like I can kind of see why they did it, because when I first saw that trailer, the second trailer I think it was, is the same reaction I had when I saw this. It's a Gundam.
Yeah, dude, I saw that
Unicorn Gundam was featured for a split second in Japan. I think somebody gets knocked to the ground, you see the unicorn in the background, and so like the geek in me is like, oh shit, there's a Gundam in this movie, there's going to be a Gundam in a movie next week, and it's kind of cool, because I mean that's an inspiration. I mean, obviously for this movie to get made, and that movie's probably never going to get made, especially because these movies haven't done that well. But it's just kind of cool that I can see the satisfaction people get when they see, like, oh, that's something I like. They're talking about something I like, so it's kind of cool. I enjoyed that.
A Gundam one movie would be legit. I would go watch
overall,
a Gundam movie.
I think the last scene of the two movies, or the last conflict of the two movies, the kind of the falling through the breach and spreading your arms and discharging, and then like the slam, like I think that kind of sums up just how much less it is. I think a good step down, Andrew said earlier, is just visually and story-wise and just captivating. It's a step down, but it's good, because I think we spent most of the spoilers hating on it. I just want to clarify that, well, it's a step down.
I think we were just nitpicking the things that stuck out to us. But yeah, no, I agree. It's enjoyable.
That's I don't think I have anything else.
All right, well, you heard it here first, folks. All right. Well, I think we can call it on Pacific Rim Uprising then. Jordan, we'll start with you. Do you have anything you've been watching or playing any games or anything lately you kind of want to mention?
I have picked up Ni no Kuni 2.
Oh, okay.
I actually didn't play the first one because of reasons, and we'll see if I ever get around to playing this one. But I picked it up. As far as watching, I've been splitting my attention. I have started Breaking Bad, and I'm 2 seasons through on that. And I've also been watching the Clone Wars because The Last Jedi got me in the mood, and I kind of want to run through that before my Steam runs out. And so I finished 3 seasons of that. I just started the 4th season. I am trying to watch Jessica Jones. I've generally kept up to speed on your podcast, but I'm a couple episodes behind now because I don't think it's bad. It's fine. It's just I don't want to watch it right now, but I kind of want to watch it so I can get there. And I watched 2 episodes of *Halt and Catch Fire*, which Netflix just put up the whole series on that, and so far I really enjoy it. It's also got Ronan the Accuser in it. Mm-hmm. He gives a pretty good
*Halt and
performance.
Catch Fire*.
He's a good actor. *Halt and Catch Fire*. Yeah, it's a period piece. It's early 80s. And I don't know exactly where the plot's going to go, but it starts out with kind of Lee Pace as the main character on a quest to upset the balance between IBM and the smaller players in the personal computer business.
Oh, that sounds cool.
So first 2 episodes are pretty cool. We'll see where it goes from there.
I've heard really great things about the whole series. Good cast too. Was it Scoot McNairy and Mackenzie Davis, future Terminator star Mackenzie Davis in that? So
is that official now? I know that was a rumor.
Yeah, that's official.
Yeah, she's pretty good, and Scoot's pretty. I don't know who Scoot is, or I don't know that I know who Scoot is, but he's pretty good. And then Lee Pace is good, and they're the kind of the 3 main cast. Obviously, there's supporters around them, but they're the main.
Never even
trio.
heard of this. This sounds
it was on AMC. I think it finished up last year, so I think 4 seasons in all, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, there's 4 seasons on Netflix. I believe that's the entire series. They never put it on. I think they might have released the first couple of seasons on DVD, but they stopped. So Netflix is probably the only way to watch it. Not the only way to watch it, but the easiest way to watch it. But I'd recommend checking that out whenever you guys are done with whatever you're currently watching.
I think I'll add that to my list. Yes.
Very good, sir. All right, Andrew, what have you been up to?
Well, I caught a really good movie on Friday. It's called
Transformers?
No, it's like Catching Fire Part 1 or Hunger Games Part 1.
Mockingjay Part 1.
Mockingjay Part 1, yeah. It was
that so
memorable.
good you couldn't even remember the title.
I didn't enjoy that one. That one was not, no. It was pretty awful.
Don't know why you bought that.
Don't recommend it. I'm working my way though. I'm almost to the series finale, so I'm excited to finish that up.
Are you though?
Yeah.
Are you really? You're excited.
You're excited for it to be done.
What else have I watched and done? Let's see here. I downloaded a really cool game called Into the Breach on the old Steams. And it's got giant robots in it fighting giant bugs. So it's kind of in the same vein. It's a isometric strategy game.
Okay.
And it's pretty freaking cool. It's by the same people that put out FTL, which I really, really enjoyed.
Okay. All right. Yeah.
And so I've been, tooling around with that. I actually might start looking into, I have Henrique's Crunchyroll account, and I think I might dig into, might look in a little bit into Gundam, because I don't know, I enjoyed that when I was a kid. I don't know if it's good, but I remember it being pretty cool.
It's variable. We can talk after the show about what's worth watching.
Oh, okay, yeah, give me some pointers. I'll listen. But other than that, that's all I got, man. What about you? What you been up to?
Well, I've been kind of splitting my time between a few different things. I'm caught up on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., which I know you're behind on, and let me be the first to tell you that you need to get your shit in order and get caught up on that. Jordan, I know you. I don't know if you've watched any of it, so I'm not going to give you shit about it, but you should watch it at some point in your life if you have time.
I believe I've seen the first 2 seasons.
Okay, all right.
I think the 3rd was airing, so I'm behind, but I was caught up at one point, I think.
Okay, well, I think it's worth your while. If you've watched 2 seasons, I think at some point certainly worth something going back to. Maybe at the conclusion of this season, which very well maybe its final season, maybe that'll be the inspiration to go back. But I will say for these past few episodes that have aired, the last one in particular was a fucking gut punch, and I think Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. has hit its fucking stride over the past couple seasons, and I think that it continues to display that excellence. So, Andrew, I definitely encourage you to catch up sooner rather than later, so we can maybe do a little bit more of an in-depth discussion on a future episode.
I'll try it out this week.
That,
I'll catch up this week.
Okay, cool. Other than that, I started a series of unfortunate events. I watched the first 2 episodes, The Bad Beginning, and it's fun. I think I read the first few books when I was a kid, so I don't really remember a whole lot of it. I remember the Jim Carrey movie, but I'm enjoying the tone of the show. The visual palette of it is pretty good. Neil Patrick Harris makes for a good Count Olaf, and it seems enjoyable. So I was trying to get caught up before the new season drops here in a few days. So I don't know if I'll quite make it there, but I'm at least well on my way, or at least I'm 2 episodes closer than I was before. So
you think it's all right? It's pretty good. You like it?
Yeah, no, I'm enjoying it. It seems, from what I can recall, it seems very close to the source material.
It's a fun show, man.
So yeah, it's a good time. Last thing I've been doing is I've been continuing my quest to beat The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, which I have now officially been playing for over a year at this point, on and off, to be fair. I haven't been playing it continuously for a year, but I beat both DLC packs for it. The first DLC was the Trial of the Sword, which is like you have to go through like 30 consecutive levels of just facing enemies and shit. It was pretty fun. I enjoyed that a lot. And then the second one's more story focused, where you get new shrines that you have to go through, and it gives a little bit more backstory on each of the champions. And there's a whole big final trial bit to it that's pretty awesome. So I think I've done everything in it except for actually beat Calamity Ganon. So I think that's something that I can accomplish before we record next, and I can finally, put it back in its case and put it on the shelf and say that I've completed it, which it's been a long time coming. So it's a great game. I mean, it's honestly one of the best games I've ever played. That's not hyperbole. I think it is just incredible. So
it's a pretty great game.
I think that's it for me. I think that is it for me, and I think that's it for this episode then. So, I want to thank our listeners for listening. I want to thank Jordan for joining us on this episode. I had a good time. I apologize if our spoiler section just sounded like we were naysaying the movie the whole time. I do want to iterate that we all enjoyed it. We just recognize that it has some problems.
We're just big fans of the first one. That's all. You know?
Yeah, and it's a downgrade. I mean, I don't know how else to say it other than it's a downgrade, but it's still fun in its own right. So don't let our naysaying and discourage you if you happen to listen to that part, because you're that guy that listens to our spoiler section without watching the movie beforehand. It's totally fine. I've done it before too. So if you enjoyed what you heard, spread the word. What do you think about that rhyme, Jordan? Are you a big fan of that one?
Gentlemen, thank you for having me. Thank you very much, gentlemen. I'm going to see the exit at this point, but I'll let you carry on your own.
Well, you heard it here first.
Yep. All right.
It was not good.
All right. Well,
fuck you, man.
That's you can support us on Patreon if you'd like to get access to our bonus episodes and early access to our regular episodes. Just head on to patreon.com/watchreviewrepeat, and you can listen to our newest bonus episode covering Phase 2 of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and you can look forward to our coverage of Phase 3 coming next month sometime. Our website is watchreviewrepeat.com, where you'll find helpful links to all our socials and all of our episode links and all the good stuff like that, like maybe some upcoming episodes or our Twitter feed that we retweet some news on. Our Gmail is watchreviewrepeat@gmail.com, so if you want to send us anything, that is the best place to do that. Our intro and outro track is Mechanolith by Kevin MacLeod, licensed under the Creative Commons by Attribution 3.0 license. And as we've talked about earlier in this episode, our next episode that we're going to be doing is, in fact, on Steven Spielberg's Ready Player One adaptation, which... Yeah, I think the early buzz on it is actually better than I expected.
That's
I
exciting.
am very curious to see how it shapes up. I will say that. So, look forward to that.
Look forward to it.
I guess that's it. Jordan, are you still with us, or did you officially depart?
I felt it would have been rude to drop the mic when everybody could have heard it, so I'm technically still here, but I intended to be signed off. I appreciate being here, Jobin, but I do have places to be. So, but thanks for having me, guys.
All right. Well, you heard it here first. Have a good one, guys. We'll catch you next episode.